Struggling Cowboy swore loyalty, until the sheriff sold his sister at auction. The boots were still warm when he found them. Not from the sun. Not from the earth. From her. They lay half buried in the dust outside the saloon, laces torn, soles cracked open like old bones. Blood had dried into the leather, dark, cracked, smelling of iron and sweat. No one touched them. No one even looked. The town had learned to look away. He knelt without a sound. His bare feet sank into the grit. His hands trembled, not from hunger, though he hadn't eaten since yesterday. Not from fear, though every window in this place held a watching eye. He trembled because he remembered how she'd stitched those boots. How she'd hummed that old hymn while she worked, Amazing Grace, her voice thin as spider silk but steady as a heartbeat. Ilara. She was 17. Smaller than most girls her age. Her fingers calloused from scrubbing floors at the mercantile. Her hair always tied back with a strip of red cloth, the same one their mother used before the fever took her. She never complained. Never asked for more than bread and clean water. And now she was gone. He didn't cry when he picked them up. He didn't scream. Didn't curse the sky or spit at God. He just held them close, pressed against his chest like they were still breathing. The scent of her, soap made from lye and wild mint, still clung to the leather. A ghost wrapped in cowhide. Inside the saloon, the piano played a slow, off-key waltz. Men laughed. Glasses clinked. A dog licked spilled whiskey from the floorboards. And there he sat. Sheriff Elias Crow. Big man. Thick mustache. A silver star pinned crooked over his coat like it didn't belong there. He sipped bourbon from a glass that hadn't been washed in days. His eyes met the cowboys across the room. No surprise. No guilt. Just amusement. Like he'd won something. The cowboy didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't raise his fists. But the silence between them grew heavy. Thicker than the dust storm that had rolled in last night. Thicker than the smoke curling from the stovepipe. It pressed down on the room like a hand on a dying man's chest. A barmaid dropped a tray. Bottles shattered. No one flinched. Someone cleared their throat. The sheriff smiled. Then he raised his glass. To new beginnings. No one cheered. No one drank. Just the wind rattling the broken shutters. Just the creak of a swing hanging from the porch outside, the one Ilara used to rock on after supper, humming under her breath. He stood. Slowly. One bootless foot in front of the other. He walked past the poker table. Past the drunk slumped over his cards. Past the boy who'd once sold him cornbread for 2 cents and now wouldn't meet his eyes. He stopped in front of the sheriff. Still didn't speak. Just held out the boots. The sheriff didn't take them. Just leaned back, swirling his drink. You should have kept your mouth shut, he said, voice low as a rattler in dry grass. The cowboy didn't answer. Then turned. Walked out. Into the desert. The sun hung low, bleeding orange over the dunes. His skin cracked. His lips split. But he didn't stop. He didn't look back. Not until he reached the ridge beyond town. There, he knelt again. And buried the boots. Not deep. Just enough so the coyotes wouldn't dig them up. He placed a flat stone on top. Wrote nothing. Didn't need to. Somewhere far off, a train whistle screamed, a long, mournful note that cut through the silence like a knife. And somewhere, in a locked room with velvet curtains and candlelight, a girl with red cloth in her hair wept quietly into her pillow. Because she knew. He'd come for her. And she knew, he'd never make it. The wind picked up. Dust swirled around his ankles. And for the first time since he was 10 years old, he cried. Not loud. Not messy. Just silent tears that vanished before they hit the ground. Like everything else in this land. Gone. Taken. Forgotten. Underscore 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 underscore. He didn't eat for 3 days. Not because he couldn't find food, but because every bite tasted like her. The first night, he slept beneath a wagon outside a ghost town called Hollow's End. The wood groaned under his weight. A rat scurried over his leg. He didn't move. He just stared at the stars, so many of them, so cold, and whispered her name like a prayer. Ilara. No one answered. Only the wind. By morning, his stomach had shrunk to a fist-sized knot. His throat was lined with dust. He licked dew off cactus spines just to feel moisture on his tongue. He found bread 2 miles later, stale, hard as rock, half buried in the dirt near an abandoned well. A child's handprint still marked the side of the bucket. He didn't take it right away. He sat beside it for an hour, watching flies buzz over the crust. Then he picked it up. Crumbled it into his palm. Let it fall slowly, like ash. He remembered how she used to knead dough before dawn. Her hands raw from lye soap. Her knuckles swollen from cold. She'd sing while she worked. Always the same song. Bread is life, she'd say. And life is what we give each other. He hadn't given her anything. Not when it mattered. Now, he'd give her everything. He traded his last horse, a bay mare named Lark, for a revolver and 3 bullets. The trader didn't ask why. Just counted the coins, spat on the ground, and handed him the gun like it was a loaf of bread. You're either a fool, he said, or a man who's already dead. The cowboy didn't answer. He rode south. Following whispers. Rumors passed between drunks in saloons, between nuns who hid refugees in their convents, between old men who swore they saw a girl with red hair being dragged into a black wagon outside Santa Fe. They called it the New Beginnings Auction. Not a place. Not really. A secret. Run by men who wore fine coats but smelled of sweat and sin. Men who bought women, not for labor, not for marriage, but for silence. For secrets they couldn't let live. One night, huddled under a cottonwood tree, he met a widow. She was bent like a broken branch, her face carved deep by grief. She sold dried apples from a basket tied to her back. No one bought them anymore. The town had forgotten her husband, the preacher who tried to stop the sheriff from taking children from orphanages. He took them, she said, voice cracked like dry earth. Said they were troubled. Said they needed correction. The cowboy didn't speak. She looked at him then, really looked. Saw the hollows in his cheeks. The blood on his boots. The way his fingers curled around the revolver like it was the only thing holding him together. You're looking for her, she said. He nodded. Ilara, she whispered. His breath stopped. How do you know her name? She reached into her shawl. With trembling hands, pulled out a small piece of cloth, red, frayed at the edges. My boy gave it to me, she said. Before they took him. Said his sister wore it every day. Said she sang hymns while she washed clothes. He took it. Held it to his chest. It still smelled like mint soap. She saw him bury the deputy, the widow said, voice dropping to a breath. The one who tried to stop the auction last year. Shot him in the back. Buried him where the mesquite grows thickest. He threatened to kill her if she told anyone. The cowboy closed his eyes. He thought of the sheriff's smile. Thought of the boots. Thought of the train whistle. He wasn't chasing a woman now. He was chasing a monster. And monsters don't die easy. They rot slow. They hide behind law. Behind badges. Behind silence. That night, he dreamed of fire. Of Alara standing in the flames, smiling. Not scared. Not crying. Just waiting. As if she'd known all along, he'd come. And that he'd burn the world down to get to her. When he woke, the sky was gray. The air smelled like rain. And somewhere far off, a coyote howled. 3 times. Then stopped. Like it knew what was coming. Underscore 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 Santa Fe didn't sleep. It held its breath. The auction house stood where the old stone church had been, before the fire, before the bones were dug up, before the town decided silence was cheaper than justice. The bell was gone. The cross, smashed into kindling. In its place, a wooden sign nailed to the wall, painted in bold black letters, New Beginnings, Quality Women for Sale, Discreet Transport provided, no windows. No doors that opened to the street. Just a single archway, guarded by 2 men with rifles and no eyes. The cowboy rode in at dusk. He wore a duster stained with sweat and dust. His boots were cracked, his hat pulled low. The revolver rested heavy under his coat. 3 bullets. 1 for the sheriff. 1 for the man who'd bid on her. 1, he wasn't sure yet. He tied his horse to a rusted hitching post outside. Didn't look back. Didn't hesitate. Inside, the air was thick. Candle wax. Perfume. Sweat. Fear. Men in wool coats and polished boots sat at round tables, sipping brandy from crystal glasses. Women in silk gowns, some weeping quietly, others staring straight ahead like their souls had already left, stood in a line along the far wall. Barefoot. Hands bound with rope. Necklaces of silver coins around their throats, marking their price. He walked past them. Didn't glance. Didn't flinch. Until he saw her. Alara. She stood at the end of the line. Thinner than he remembered. Her red cloth gone. Hair matted, dirty. A bruise bloomed purple beneath her left eye. Her lips were cracked. Her hands trembled, not from fear. From shame. She didn't look up when he entered. Didn't cry out. Didn't smile. Just stared at the floor. Like she'd stopped believing anyone would come. The auctioneer, a slick man with a gold tooth and a cane made of bone, cleared his throat. Next lot, he called, voice smooth as oil. Young woman, age 17. Healthy. Skilled in laundry, cooking, domestic service. No record of violence. Minor, emotional instability. He paused. Smiled. But that's what makes her interesting. A man in a top hat raised his hand. 500. Another chimed in. 6. 7. The cowboy didn't move. Didn't speak. He just reached inside his coat. Slowly. Carefully. And pulled out the boots. Blood-caked. Dust-stained. Still smelling faintly of mint soap. He held them high. Not like a weapon. Like an offering. Like a ghost returning home. The room went still. The brandy stopped swirling. The candle flame shivered. Even the auctioneer froze. All eyes turned. To him. To the boots. To the broken man holding them. Then, a whisper. One voice, trembling. Those are hers. A woman near the front covered her mouth. Another wept. The sheriff stepped forward. From behind a velvet curtain. Dressed in his finest suit. Star gleaming bright. Hat tipped just so. He smiled. I thought you'd be dead by now, he said, voice calm as a grave. Or run off. Like a coward. The cowboy didn't flinch. He stepped sideways, just enough, to block the path between Alara and the door. Second shot. Hit the auctioneer's cane. It shattered into splinters. Third shot. Blew out the lantern above the stage. Darkness swallowed half the room. Candlelight flickered. Shadows danced like demons. Alara didn't move. She just stood there, still, silent, eyes locked on him. As if she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. The sheriff lunged. Hand already on his own revolver. Eyes blazing. You little dog, he roared. The cowboy didn't flinch. He stepped sideways, just enough, to block the path between Alara and the door. First shot. The man in the top hat dropped. Second shot. The auctioneer's cane shattered. Third shot. The lantern died. Darkness. The sheriff fired. Bullet tore through the cowboy's shoulder. Hot. Sharp. Like fire driven into his bones. He staggered, but didn't fall. Didn't cry out. Just turned. Looked at her. One last time. Then he did the only thing left to do. He threw the revolver. Not at the sheriff. At the wall beside her. It clattered against the wood, and landed near her bare foot. She didn't think. Didn't hesitate. Her fingers closed around the grip. Like she'd been born holding it. The room froze. Even the flames seemed to pause. The sheriff raised his gun again. Put it down, girl, he growled. You don't know how to use that. She looked at it. At the blood on the barrel. At the scratches on the handle, scratches she had made when she was 12, carving her initials after he took their father's rifle. Then she looked up. At him. And whispered, I know how to kill a liar. She pulled the trigger. The shot wasn't loud. But it was clean. Perfect. The bullet caught the sheriff square in the throat. He choked. Eyes bulging. Hands clawing at his neck as if he could hold back the life pouring out. He fell backward. Crashed into the mantel. The clock fell with him. Stopped. At 8:10. The same time they'd taken her. The crowd scattered. Some ran for the doors. Others just stood there, staring at the body. At the girl. At the man bleeding out on the floor. The cowboy collapsed. Knees hitting the blood-slick wood. His breath came in ragged gasps. Warmth spread down his side. He could feel it. Could smell it. Iron and salt and sweat. She ran to him. Didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just knelt beside him. Tore her dress. Pressed the fabric hard against his wound. Her hands shook. But not from fear. From rage. From grief. From love. He reached up. Felt her face. Cold. Wet. Why, he whispered. She leaned close. Her lips brushed his ear. I didn't want you to become him. He tried to smile. Couldn't. The world blurred at the edges. Smoke curled overhead. Somewhere, a woman began to sing. Low. Broken. Amazing Grace. He recognized the tune. It was hers. He closed his eyes. Felt her arms wrap around him. Felt her tears fall onto his skin. Then, he heard it. The distant sound. Faint. Familiar. A train whistle. Coming. Always coming. He opened his eyes one last time. Looked at her. Really looked. Not as his sister. Not as the girl who stitched boots. But as the woman she'd become. Stronger than any man here. Braver than any law. He mouthed 3 words. She nodded. Understood. He let go. Let the darkness take him. Underscore 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 underscore. She carried him out through the back. Past the burning curtain. Past the broken sign. Past the bodies left behind. The desert wind greeted them like an old friend. Cool. Dry. Honest. She dragged him into the saddle. Wrapped his arm around her waist. He was heavy. Too heavy. But she didn't falter. She rode. Through dust. Through silence. Through the dark. Hours passed. Stars blinked above like watching eyes. When dawn broke, they found a hollow beneath a mesquite tree. She laid him down. Wiped his face with her sleeve. Took off her shawl. Covered him. Then she walked to the edge of the ridge. Stood there. Stared at the horizon. Where the train had come from. Where it would return. She reached into her pocket. Found the red cloth. Folded it slowly. Tucked it into his coat. Then she knelt. Placed her palm over his chest. Listened. For his heartbeat. It was weak. Flickering. Like a candle in a storm. She whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't run faster. I'm sorry I didn't scream louder. I'm sorry I let you carry me." She paused. Then, "I'm not sorry you came." She rose. Walked away. Into the dust. Without looking back. Behind her, the sun climbed. The wind picked up. And somewhere far off, a lone coyote howled. Once. Then fell silent. As if mourning. As if knowing, some debts can't be paid. Only carried. Until the end. Underscore 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 underscore. She didn't look back. Not once. The desert swallowed her footsteps like they'd never been. The cowboy's breath came slow now, shallow, uneven, as if each one were borrowed from the wind itself. She left him beneath the mesquite, wrapped in her shawl, the red cloth tucked against his heart. She took nothing but the boots. His boots. The ones he'd buried. The ones she'd mended with thread spun from grief. She rode until the sun burned high and the land turned to salt and stone. No water. No food. Just dust in her mouth and silence in her bones. She found the cabin on the 4th day. It stood alone at the edge of a dead creek, wood bleached white by sun, roof caved in where lightning had struck years ago. A porch swing swayed gently, though there was no wind. A child's shoe sat on the step. Small. Leather. Too worn for anyone to wear now. Inside, The air smelled of old smoke and dried herbs. A rocking chair still moved slightly, its rhythm long forgotten, but its memory alive. On the table, a loaf of bread. Hard as stone. Crusted with time. Beside it, a note, written in careful, looping script. If you're reading this, you've come too late. Or just in time. No name. Just the scent of lavender still clinging to the paper. She sat in the rocker. Let it creak. Let the memories rise. She remembered the church bell. The auction house. The gun smoke. The way he looked at her when he threw the revolver, not to fight, but to give. He didn't save her from death. He saved her from becoming what they made her. She touched the bread. Broke off a piece. Didn't eat it. Just held it. Like prayer. Outside, the wind stirred. Dust danced across the floorboards. And then, a sound. Faint. Familiar. A train whistle. Far off. But coming. She stood. Walked to the window. Watched the horizon. Waited. She didn't know if it was the same train that took her. Or if it was another. One that carried ghosts. Or hope. Or nothing at all. She didn't open the door. Didn't call out. Just stood there, barefoot, dusty, hollow-eyed, and let the sound fade into the distance. That night, she lit a candle. Placed it on the table. Beside the bread. Beside the shoe. She pulled the boots from her pack. Set them beside the candle. Then she knelt. And whispered the hymn. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, her voice cracked. Trembled. Broke. But she kept singing. Until the flame flickered low. Until the stars blinked out one by one. At dawn, she left. Took nothing. Left the boots. Left the candle. Left the bread. The cradle still rocked. Empty. Waiting. Somewhere, miles away, beneath a mesquite tree, a man stirred. His skin was gray. His lips blue. His heartbeat, barely there. He dreamed of her. Of her hands kneading dough. Of her humming under her breath. Of her saying, life is what we give each other. He opened his eyes. Saw the sky. Saw the vultures circling. He tried to speak. Couldn't. So he reached out. Felt the ground. Felt the dirt. Felt the weight of the boots beside him. They weren't there. He knew. She'd taken them. Not to keep. But to carry. To remember. To live. He smiled. Just a little. Then closed his eyes again. And waited. Not for rescue. Not for heaven. But for silence. Because after everything, silence was the only thing left that hadn't lied to him. Days passed. No one came. The wind buried the cabin in dust. The train never returned. And the boots? They sat in the rocking chair. Still smelling faintly of mint soap. Still holding the shape of her feet. Still waiting. For someone who'd learned too late, that loyalty isn't measured in blood. Or bullets. Or even sacrifice. It's measured in what you leave behind. When you walk away. And let the other person live. Underscore 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 underscore. The last thing the desert remembers is not the guns. Not the screams. Not even the names. It remembers the quiet. The empty cradle. The untouched bread. The boots. And the woman who walked out. Without looking back. Because some loves aren't meant to be kept. Only honored. By letting go.